I go by Steve Boots, but my real name is Steve Boutillier. It's pronounced many different ways, none of which are agreed upon by family members, but it's spelled Boutilier.
Welcome to the podcast.
Glad to be here.
Take me back to when you started using TikTok. What was the point at the time?
It's far less glamorous than you'd expect. I was working full time as a teacher at the time, and I was avoiding working on report cards. It was January of, I believe, 2022. I was avoiding working on report cards. And so I had started watching some TikToks. There were a few like Canadian politics TikTokers who I thought were pretty good. And I kept thinking like, I feel like I could probably do what they're doing. Like, I feel like I have ideas and could share those. And so I made one TikTok about the resignation of the head of the SHA, which is, I intentionally chose it because it was like a fairly niche story. Like, not a huge appeal. It's interesting, and it did like 75,000 views, and I had almost 5,000 followers in the first day. And I went, oh, I guess this is a thing I do now. And literally since then, it's been just trying stuff, seeing what I like, seeing what works, and the audience has responded.
So did you try different things to grow your followings, or did you just do what you like to do and it just grew organically? That's
such a good question, because I always talk about this, that my true north is always just make good stuff. If you're making good stuff, then content strategy matters less. Platform matters less. If you're making good stuff and making good content, audiences find you.
So you were doing this, as you said, as a teacher.
Mm-hmm.
How long had you been teaching, and who were you teaching?
I have taught a little bit of everything, but I primarily taught French immersion in the middle years, so like grades 6, 7, 8. When I started making TikToks, I'd been teaching for, I think, 15 or 16 years. And what wound up happening was it just wound up being sort of a creative outlet. So I do this thing where every year I set a different sort of target for myself, a thing of myself that I want to work on. And that year it was creativity, because I told my wife I wasn't very creative and she laughed at me. And so I decided to try to just pursue something creative, and it all sort of found its way through there.
When did you realize you might be able to make a go of it for a living?
Later than you'd expect. I was experiencing really significant burnout teaching. I loved the job, but it was really burning me out. And so I made the decision to take a 1-year leave of absence. The division I worked for had the ability to take an unpaid year leave of absence. And so I saved up a little bit and decided to take a year and just see what there was with the content stuff. And it probably didn't become clear I could make a living at it, honestly, until like a month or two ago. And even then, it's like, probably, I'm pretty sure, maybe.
So teachers in Saskatchewan, just for clarity's sake, based on the latest collective agreement, start at $55,000 a year, and depending on experience and education, can make up to as much as $109,000 a year. You left a well-paying job.
I did.
Why?
Because there's more to life than how much is in your bank account. And since I've left teaching or stepped away from teaching, I've had pretty much all of the people closest to me in my life pull me aside individually and say, please don't go back. Because I was just so tired. I was used up. I was grumpy. My social batteries were so depleted by the end of the day. And so now working a job where I set my own hours, and I set unreasonable hours, let's be very clear here, but I set my own hours. So like if I need to attend a family event, I'm able to do that. If I want to go, see a concert, I'm able to do that and just book myself a different morning the next day. It felt a lot like getting my life back in a lot of ways. And so I think that held a lot of value to me.
Did you not like teaching?
I loved teaching. I consider what I do now still teaching in a different format. I kind of think of myself as like social studies teacher to the Canadian internet in a way. So to me, it's the same skill sets. It's the same. There's interpersonal relationships with my chat when I'm streaming or with my Discord server. There's, teaching. There's answering questions. There's all sorts of stuff. It's really, it's shocking how similar the experiences are. So to me, it really just feels like I'm doing a lot of the same things in a very different format.
Would you go back to teaching?
In a second. If social media doesn't work out for whatever reason, no question.
Okay, let's talk about money.
Okay.
Are you making money?
In the strictest sense, yes.
What do you mean by that?
It's a tricky question to answer because it's a huge range. Because I took such a bet on myself, there was a number of months there where I was burning through savings, just trying to keep afloat. And now I'm a lot closer to being able to cover my bills and a lot closer to being able to live, I would say, a pretty comparable lifestyle to what I was living when I was teaching. Like I'm not... I haven't, let's just say I have not exceeded any of the teaching salary ranges yet. But it's also a tricky thing because it's hard to gauge what kind of living you're making when it's social media because there's always going to be ebbs and flows and hills and valleys. Like I'm a politics creator in the middle of an election, so it's good times right now. What's that going to look like when the news cycle slows down in like July and August? When it comes to politics specifically.
Okay, but can you give me a sense of how much you make on a month-to-month basis, even just a range of dollar value for people?
So I checked this. So YouTube actually gives me monthly averages. So my monthly average going back, I think it's 6 months, is like $1,000 to $3,000. So like these are not large sums of money, but they're not laughable either. And you'll have multiple revenue streams. So like I stream on Twitch and I've got a Patreon and things like that sort of help to keep things afloat.
Do you have brand deals or product placement?
I just did my first brand deal last week, and they're generally fairly limited. Because in order to start getting brand deals, generally you need to hit it. There's sort of two things that need to happen. You need to hit a critical mass when it comes to users, but there's also brand risk. Brands, weirdly enough, don't like to do a lot of advertising with people who maybe put up controversial opinions or maybe who challenge status quo opinions. Or in the case of myself, a lot of very capitalistic brands are less eager to sponsor anti-capitalist content, right? So it depends a lot on your niche when it comes to things like ad buys. So I've been very fortunate to have some organizations that align with my values who have come on board, but that's a very new development. How
important are your values as a content creator?
Immensely. There's nothing more important. The internet is smart. I know it seems the opposite sometimes, but the internet can see through artifice very, very well. And so adhering to your values and living by those is really, really important. And owning it when you have missteps is also really important.
Have you figured out which platforms are the most lucrative when it comes to your audience? Did you think you were going to make more money in one way than the other? Like, to be clear, TikTok does not have a creator platform that you actually make money from in Canada, and that's your biggest audience.
Yeah, that's kind of the funny thing is a lot of people know me best as being a TikToker. You don't make money from TikTok. Pretty much the only revenue you get is through gifts. And so, like, to give you a sense, like if you're making maybe a couple of dollars a month from from TikTok, that'd be a good month. When it comes to which platforms pay the best, it depends a lot. For me, it's YouTube. YouTube is the engine room behind the whole thing because YouTube serves ads on your content and you get a cut. TikTok serves ads on your content. You get no such cut. The biggest thing that I've noticed is short form videos like TikToks and YouTube Shorts and stuff like that. A lot of people think that that's kind of the big driving force behind stuff. It'll push audience, but there's basically no revenue to it. To me, it's almost entirely split between YouTube is by far the biggest portion, and then Twitch, and then my Patreon.
So on Twitch, that's known as a video game streaming platform. Are you streaming video games?
Well, so here's where it's interesting is Twitch has really evolved past just gaming streams these days. But I think that's where a lot of people focus their energy. And so I used to just exclusively stream gaming on Twitch. It was just sort of my way to blow off steam. I was actually reluctant to talk about politics on Twitch because, frankly, it's a big job. It's not an easy thing to talk about politics with a live audience who can offer feedback, right? Mm-hmm. That's a challenging thing. And so I started out doing gaming streams. And friends, if you're listening at home and you think I'm going to stream gaming on Twitch, that's great, but there's literally no money in it because it's such a crowded vertical. When it comes to something like politics, that's when I had a lot more success. But what I've wound up doing is there's sort of synergies within these things. So we take the Twitch streams, break them into clips, put them on YouTube, and so things sort of feed one another. So they don't really exist in bubbles in that sense.
How many hours a day do you spend doing this?
14 to 16. I get up at 5 a.m. and work until about 8 or 9.
How does that compare to teaching?
Hours less work, hours more, work less. Because with teaching, there's a very different layer to it in that there's emotional stakes to everything that happens. Everything that happens is with somebody's kid. Mm-hmm. And so my wife and I talk about this sometimes when I get like stressed about, streams or whatever, is the slogan is it's PR, not the ER. It's important, but it's not a critical emergency to talk about politics on Twitch. A lot of what happens with people's kids is time sensitive and essential and incredibly important. So more hours, but the stakes are very different and the weight of the work is very different.
What's been the biggest surprise becoming a content creator?
The biggest surprise becoming a content creator. I thought it would be a lot more individual. I thought it was a one person show sort of thing. It is not. Almost immediately, it became clear the only way this was going to happen was with help, be it through mod teams, be it through my wife, frankly, being the thing keeping me sane as I took the biggest risk in my life. Maybe it's the community. Maybe it's, the Twitch chat, because they're as much keeping a part of the show as I am, and they bring energy to the show. I thought it would be a solo gig. It's not. Far from it. Even as a single content creator on screen, it looks like a one-man show, but it is.
What's the biggest misconception about what is now your job?
So I see a lot of, because I taught middle years, I had this interaction so many times where there were kids who said that they want to grow up to be YouTubers or Twitch streamers or whatever. What I wish I could convey to them is that the only way you can break through is by working ludicrously hard and not looking like you're working hard while you're doing it. Like the example that pops into my head is like one of the biggest politics streamers in the world is a guy named Hasanabi. He's on stream like 8 to 12 hours a day. He's at the top of the game because he works so hard, right? It's not just because he's good at it. It's also because he's outworking a lot of people.
Mm-hmm. What does your family think about all of this?
My family, it's very funny because my family aren't necessarily politically aligned with all the things that I'm saying, but they seem to recognize that it has a lot of value and it has a lot of worth. And so supportive and eager. I don't know if they, especially my parents, it's such a different thing from their experience. I'm not sure they fully get it, but I remember I had a conversation with my dad. And he was asking if I would ever run for office. And I said, I thought about it, but sometimes I think about who had the most impact on Canadian politics in the last 20 or 30 years. And the answer I keep coming back to is Rick Mercer, right? And so that's not to equate myself to Rick Mercer by any stretch, but it means to me that commentary and comedy can have a lot of impact. And so I think my family recognized that. What's
your end game?
There is no end game. Frankly, if I give the impression of a man with a plan for all this, I am not. This literally started with me talking into my phone a couple years ago, and I have just kept at a sprint and gone, this is so obviously just lightning in a bottle, and just trying to keep with it and trying to keep ahead of it and grow with it, right? I brought on an editor now, and so now I've got, a different... I've had to grow in really significant ways because I'm a control freak. And so handing off something like editing videos of me and having them post online, that was a huge change for me because my hands were on everything every step of the way. And it's very funny because he's better at it than me. He's so much better at it than me. And even just in the 2 weeks since I brought him on, the way that his editing has surpassed mine instantly shows me just how much growing I still have left to do and how much I still have left to learn. And so for me, it's just always new stuff every day and just trying to keep up with it.
So you have staff?
Not staff in the strictest sense so much as generally you don't content creators don't hire staff as such. It'll be either through commission or flat rate. You'll hire people to edit your videos, but they'll usually be independent contractors.
How much have you had to invest in this of your own? Because you talk about money you make, but what about the cost?
That's a very good question. I would say on the low side, I'm into this for at least $10,000 or $15,000 on the very low side. And that's just thinking in the strictest sense of like camera gear, sound gear, monitors, desk, fancy internet so that I can upload a bazillion videos, all these sort of things. So like it's not nothing. I don't know what I would have imagined before I did that number to be. Honestly, the most expensive thing is the camera, and I didn't need that fancy a camera. So it's maybe not the best estimate, but a fair bit for sure.
Advice to kids who are thinking, I want to grow up and make money on TikTok or YouTube or Twitch or whatever platform.
Have something to offer. Have something to offer, because there are a lot of people who think that their charisma is going to be enough to make them successful. And there are lots of charismatic people who have not succeeded on those pages. And the thing that sets you apart is having a skill set where you are able to bring value to the content that you make. So for me, it's, the skill set that I bring is being a middle school teacher. It's not that I'm bringing necessarily some grand earth-shattering insights. It's that I'm generally able to parcel them in ways that people can wrap their heads around. So that's my value add. So like if you're going to be a gaming streamer, what is there to set you apart from the 20,000 other gaming streamers who are quite charming on a microphone? What's the thing that sets you apart? What's your value add? What's your distinct skill set?
Steve, this has been really interesting. Thanks so much for pulling back the curtain on your operation.
My pleasure.